God of War is a series known for its large-scale boss battles and visceral combat, so it can be expected for a franchise consisting of 8 games to have its fair share of fun and memorable boss fights. With a total of over 40 boss fights stretching across all the games, there are plenty to pick from when it comes to choosing favorites. Maybe you have a favorite based on more than just how fun or large-scale the fight was, and you enjoyed it because of the weight and significance that it had on the game's plot, or what type of person that character was in general. For me, it was easy to narrow down my favorite bosses, specifically 5 of them, all based on my overall enjoyment of their fights, their impact on the story, and also how they managed to cause problems for Kratos. The Reaper of all souls, the god who predates even the cycle of death itself, Thanatos is among the most powerful of the Greek gods. Having survived the Great Primordial War, he has proven his case as a force to be reckoned with. Seeming to be a close friend of the first God of War, Ares, Thanatos made it his duty to take the thought-to-be marked warrior Deimos off of the God of War's hands, and subjected the boy to a lifetime of torture in the domain of death. Once the true marked warrior and second God of War Kratos finally saved his forsaken brother, the 2 Spartans commenced their onslaught on the death god. As Kratos was armed with the blades of Athena, Deimos was given the arms of Sparta. The fight itself flows very well, especially with the ability to make Deimos hurl a spear at the boss, along with some pretty neat quick-time events or random bits that show off the Spartans working together in battle. Thanatos isn't necessarily a tough boss, and is actually more fun than anything. He switches between his intimidating human form and this big dragon pig looking thing that you get to wail on. Seeing Kratos and Deimos fighting side by side after a lifetime of separation is pretty bittersweet, considering that Deimos is killed about halfway through the fight, making things a bit more personal. The execution at the end of this specific fight is among one of my all-time favorites. As Kratos does his traditional slow walk towards the defeated enemy, Thanatos only laughs at Kratos while calling him insignificant and blaming him for Deimos' imprisonment. This had me feeling genuinely invested in putting an end to the death god, and left me in awe as Kratos slipped closer to the edge of his madness and hatred for the gods. The guy even managed to have Zeus scared, who ended up declaring that Kratos was now
Death, the destroyer of worlds.
This next boss isn't just a boss, it's the entire first level of God of War 2. At first, it was just a giant bronze statue of the sun god Helios. As Kratos rampaged through Rhodes with his Spartan army, Zeus in the form of an eagle drained a majority of Kratos' godly powers to animate the Great Colossus, which Kratos ended up fighting on his way through the city. Avoiding giant hand slams and grabs, Kratos managed to mangle the statue, but this wasn't enough, and at the behest of Zeus, Kratos made his way to the Blade of Olympus, which he allowed to drain the rest of his godly powers so that he could put an end to the rampaging Colossus. Funny enough, the massive statue ended up achieving its purpose, and managed to crush the weakened Kratos, allowing Zeus to complete his plan of murdering his son. This boss is really nothing special and kinda serves as something to beat up on during the game's tutorial, but I just love how it manages to be an exciting spectacle with some serious importance. It being a symbol of Zeus' own fear of Kratos' power is what makes this boss special to me. When you think about it, this entire boss fight can be seen more figuratively as a battle between Kratos and his massive ego. Being blinded by his own power and rage, Kratos was easily manipulated into causing his own death. Following the killing of Kratos, Zeus went on a rampage and ended up wiping out the entire Spartan army, except for one man. Being ordered to protect Sparta by a now revived immortal Kratos, the last Spartan traveled home and was met by death and destruction at the hands of Zeus. And so the lone warrior set out on a journey to seek an audience with the Sisters of Fate to possibly reverse the destruction of his city. However, Kratos was also on a journey to seek an audience with the sisters, and had reached a point on the island of creation where he was met by a shadowy figure who states that he had come too far to fail, and the two fight. This fight is really short and pretty easy, but it's still fun. But it's another one that is special to me, as it turns out that the shadowy figure was the last Spartan all along, who before dying tells Kratos of what happened to Sparta and what he was there to do. Once again, Kratos had killed someone that he cared deeply for, and once again Kratos' hatred of the gods reached new heights. Only minutes after the cremation of his wife, Kratos and his son Atreus were alarmed when they heard knocking at their door. A stranger in search of someone waited on the other side, and Kratos made his son hide in case things got ugly. Thinking that the stranger knew of his past as Ghost of Sparta, Kratos demanded that he leave or else he wouldn't be able to. But the stranger instead decided to fight the God of War and exhibited power far beyond that of any human. Fighting only with his fists, the stranger made for a very fun opponent, and was what made me become fully drawn into the newest God of War. This first true boss fight of the game made me utilize what I had learned about the game's combat system in the short time that I had played it, and managed to get me pretty excited the further along it went. I even went as far as to only use Kratos' fist when fighting to get the most length and pleasure out of the fight. From hitting him with a log, to a hulking obelisk, the introduction of the Rage of Sparta ability, and the neck-breaking finale, this fight served as the perfect way to introduce me to the latest era of God of War. Now, what can top the boss that I just mentioned? There's one obvious choice, and it's the one who served as the catalyst for the events of the entire God of War series. The original God of War, and one of Kratos' most fearsome opponents, Ares. It's only right for the perpetrator behind all of Kratos' misfortune to take the #1 spot. The setup for this fight that took completing the entire game to pay off, all the exposition detailing why Kratos was after Ares' head, the poetic justice of Ares being killed by his own perfectly groomed warrior, it all culminated into one emotionally driven and absolutely awesome boss fight that the rest of the series has yet to live up to. The fight against Ares managed to be challenging and varied at the same time, going from a standard fight to an illusion where Kratos had to battle numerous copies of himself for the sake of his family that represented his mistake of murdering them, and coming to a close with a good old-fashioned sword fight to determine who was the more superior warrior, and who was more worthy of the title, God of War. Of the many bosses littered through anything God of War, these 5 are my all-time favorites, and they'll stay that way until another proves its case. I'm hopeful that future installments bring in some amazing bosses, and I'm really hyped to fight Thor whenever that'll happen. Who are your favorite God of War bosses? Do you share some of the same ones as me, or do you have a totally different list? Be sure to let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please do leave a like, as it does help a lot. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, until next time.